to order at 7:31 p.m. Please stand and salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we go on with the rehearing of 20 Wild Grove, I want to give everybody an overview of the process that we're dealing tonight with. The process of DBA will follow this evening is stipulated in our rules of procedure. This is not a public hearing for input from either the applicant nor those supporting or opposing the applicant. The board has to review the information in hand and decide if there is compelling reason to change the spirit of the decision. Before the board deliberates on the matter, there must be a motion to either sustain the current decision or to rescind. The motion was made to require the variance to be 7 feet from the southerly side of the unpermitted deck. I'd like to make one comment. At the last meeting, things kind of got out of hand. There were some accusations of some of the members up here on the board. That happens tonight. That person or persons will be asked to leave. If they do not leave, I have an officer out back here who's going to escort them. Until such time that happens, the meeting will be on hold. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? I don't want any outcries. I don't want any accusations from any of the board members. No outcries. So the rehearing for Charles and Minnie's already 20 Flowers Road requested rehearing for the denial of the variance as decided on April 12th. The property is referenced as statute number 2-3. The information was supplied. It was? I'm sorry. Did everybody hear me? I guess I had it on mute. I apologize for that. All right. The information was supplied to the recent board members. Now I'm going to ask all the members if they read the letter that the Dohertys submitted, and I hope everybody's read it in their packet.
Yes.
Okay. Alan, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When was it in the packet?
It was in the packet you received in the mail. Yeah.
I think they came with the pictures.
Yep.
You should have received it probably Friday or Saturday in the mail.
It's in this one.
Did you find it, Mr. Gibbs?
Yes.
Okay. Please let me know when you're through reading it.
All set.
I'll sit. Now that everybody's read it, this is the only information addition that we had from the Dohertys. Okay. Does anyone feel that there's any compelling new information that would possibly change their vote of April 12, 2021? Any discussion? Comments?
I have some reservations about my vote.
I'm sorry, could you speak up, please?
I've got some reservations about the vote that I gave in April, because really, the more I look at it, I mean, we didn't give a variance, we gave a special exception. And I don't, re-looking at it, I don't think that this qualifies for a special exception, even with any conditions, because special exceptions should not have conditions.
Well, that was an add-on, like a contingency to the end of the motion that was made, if you recall it. I have a copy of it here someplace. Yeah. So I think it'll pass muster. Is that the only comment we have? Mr. Gibbs? Any comment about the additional information to make you change your mind on our previous vote?
Just looking at the other houses around there and the variances we gave the neighbor about 6 houses away, basically the same thing for a house,
Yeah.
not even for a deck.
Well, let's deal with 20 Wilders Grove, please.
I'm just
Okay.
trying to bring it
Okay.
into,
Yep.
you know,
Okay.
comparison.
Yeah.
We're in the same neighborhood,
Yeah.
and we just gave a variance there.
Yeah. Alan, you have any comments, Alan?
No, it's, there's no way you can get 25 foot for a variance anyway,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. We're talking about the motion that we made in April, Alan. Do you have reservations of changing that?
No, I guess we could leave it.
Yeah. Alan, Mike? Mike, any comments? No. Do I have a motion to confirm or to rescind the motion of April 12, 2021?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
What's the motion?
The motion is to either to confirm or rescind.
Yeah, well,
It's to confirm or rescind the motion of April 12th.
is it to confirm or is it to rescind? You're gonna choose one or the other.
It's either confirmed or rescind. If it's confirmed, yeah, then it's all over, the motion will carry and the meeting is over. If we rescind, we start off with the meeting again. Okay?
So I think the motion needs to be to confirm or make it clear. The motion is either to confirm or to rescind,
Yes.
not either or.
Right, you got to make a choice.
Yes, make a choice, that's correct, yeah. Do we have a second?
And I want to make this clear. The first motion is to confirm. Is that accurate?
The motion is either one. It's either to confirm.
Well, we've got to decide which one we're going to do. The motion can only say to confirm or it can say to rescind.
Right,
You
well,
can't say either
whatever
or.
you want to make for a motion, you make a motion to
Yeah, well,
rescind
but
or
you're
make a
asking-
motion to,
You were asking for a second. What was the original motion?
The motion was to rescind.
So to clarify,
rescind.
your first motion is to rescind. Thank you.
do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion, gentlemen? No further discussion? Will Mr. Doggett please call for a roll call vote?
Mr. Gibbs?
Okay.
Mr. French?
Aye.
Mr. Hamill?
Aye.
Mr. Conley?
No.
Mr. Kozak?
Aye.
It's 4-1 to rescind.
Okay, so the vote was what, Jim?
4-1 to rescind.
To rescind, okay. All right. So we start the public, or the rehearing for the Charles and Wendy Doherty. Okay. Jim, is it appropriate that we have the Doherty speak again? Is this like a new motion? How do we work this?
Not in theory.
I think it's more discussion amongst us.
Pardon me?
I think it's more with, and only focused on this new evidence.
Yeah,
The board should be deliberating
yeah.
on the new
evidence.
the additional variance and the additional,
Okay, all right.
based on the paperwork that you have.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
Though still, this now is a public hearing, and both the applicant and those opposed should be given an opportunity to present any new information. Also, I think what we'd want to do is to let the record show that all of the hearings from April, May, and June be made a part of the record of this hearing.
Yeah.
In July.
Then I would let the Dohertys speak and explain their new evidence.
Yeah, just,
Drop your picture.
this is the only thing that's right here, right?
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Do you want to have them up?
Mr. Doherty's, yeah. Would Doherty's like to,
Is there a second to Mr. Hamill's motion?
pardon me?
Is there a second to Mr. Hamill's motion?
Second was,
I'll second that.
yeah,
Bring all the information forward.
yeah.
Want to go to roll call?
Roll call.
Not roll call.
Mr.
vote.
Gibbs?
What was the motion?
To make all of the record of the meetings in April, May, June, and July a part of this hearing.
Okay, yeah, aye,
I screwed up on that. I misread it.
It's all right.
aye,
Oh, sorry.
sorry.
Mr. French?
Aye.
Mr. Hamill?
Aye.
Mr. Conley?
Aye.
Mr. Kozak?
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Okay. Okay, we're back to the request on 20 Robbins Grove, and there's two variances and a special exemption. Variance from Article XX1X, Section 3A, because the structures are within the shoreline setback zone. And special exemption from Section X1, Article 3, because you're expanding a non-conforming structure. And variance from X1, 3A, because you cannot meet the first criteria of the special exemption requirements. Mr. Doherty, you'd like to take the podium? Could you please review the new information that you supplied with us, please? Yeah.
Is this working? I simply pointed out, everything that I put in this letter is basically what I would like to say again, and you guys have a copy of that. I would like to point out that in that part of town, that deck that everybody up and down that whole neighborhood has a deck or a shed or a wall or something on top of everybody else, closer to the neighbors and closer to the water than what I built. So I realized that 1 foot away from the property line is a little much, but it was put there not intentionally to go on top of anybody. It was put there to center itself on the existing building that's down there. So I'm not sure where 7 feet came from in that meeting. It kind of came up real quick at the end, and it went on for 2 hours.
I believe that was, that calculation was done, that was where the previous deck
For
was.
the previous,
Yeah.
okay, so.
Right.
I think 3.5 feet or even 4 feet is a fair compromise from the property line. That's 10% of the property. That's a lot. 4 feet in general is not a lot, but in this case, it's a lot.
In the information that we submitted, that we did have, that we have the shoreline protection, they did okay us and say that we were, sorry, that we were close, that we were within the speculations of how much we could build that far from there, and we were within 8 square feet of what we could go up to, according to the shoreline protection. So the variance, the first variance that we're going for, was approved by the shoreline protection.
Any questions for the authorities? I just think you can tell we don't do a lot of rehearings, so if we're fumbling around, I apologize. I've only been the chair for a few months now, so it's all kind of like, okay,
And it was only with Zoom and everything else, so.
thank you.
I think the reason they wrote that exception into the town, the bylaws, if you want to call them that, is just for exactly properties like this, that everybody's on top of everybody else. And I'm willing to compromise and meet halfway, and I think that's I think it's fair for everybody.
Thank you very much. Okay. Gentlemen, we want to do some discussion about the 3 areas.
Before we go and do discussion, shouldn't we get more input from others and then close the public hearing and then we'll do?
Do you think seriously, do you think we need any more input?
I think that it is important that people be given an opportunity.
Fine, Roger, yes. Do we have anybody who'd like to speak, please? To the podium, please announce your name and your address if you come to the podium.
Just name.
Name, okay. Just your name, evidently, not the address. Okay.
Seriously, I think you're right. I don't think I need to speak any further or send any other letters. I have no issue with the deck. It's beautiful. As he mentioned before, it's 40 feet of land.
Could you lower that mic, miss? I'm thinking.
If he centered it in the middle of the property, it would have been equal on both sides. I understand they have a door there. I think that's where the 7 feet came from, because the request was to put it to the door. I think that was a little bit off, and it landed in the middle of the door. Right, wrong, or indifferent, I agree. It probably shouldn't land in the middle of the door, but I think 3 feet is still a little bit too close when there was nothing existing before. And the only other thing I can say is if we were asked originally, and if the permit was done, I think there would have been a great compromise, and I think everybody would have been happy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mike Borton, 22 Wilders Grove. Previously, he submitted some photographs showing that he'd like to have a 3-foot parallel from the fence cut back. If we do more than 3 feet, he would have to change one of his footings at the closest port, further port from going towards the lake. So a 3-foot parallel against the property line wouldn't affect him disturbing the soil anymore, and he'd have to change his structure quite a bit in order to go beyond 3 feet. That's all I'd have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, we have 3 areas who did the oh, I'm sorry.
So in the paperwork that we did add, there is a tax card in there that does show the Rosses have a deck that didn't have a permit, and I understand that this is their big issue, is that we don't have a permit. But I don't understand why it's such an issue when in their tax card, their shed sticks out further than our deck does, but they didn't have a permit for it. We did try to apply for a permit, but because of COVID, the office was closed 3 times when we called and when we came here personally. So that's why we decided to go forth with it prior to waiting for COVID to end.
we're only looking at one property, not your neighbor's property.
Absolutely, I understand that, but I'm saying that that is the big thing that I keep hearing, is that we didn't have a permit, but I don't understand why stones are thrown when the same thing happens.
Excuse me, I just have to answer to that. It had nothing to do with the fact that they did not have a permit. It had to do with the fact that they did not discuss it with me prior to the permit. And we do have a permit for our deck, and Mr. Michael Fortin there actually built my deck.
Let's keep it to the application in front of us.
Yep.
Getting back to requesting only cutting it back 3 feet from the property line. In an earlier photograph that was sent, it would show how his bar is used, and if he cut more than that, it would have to put the handrail back further, and it would make the use of his bar a little more inaccessible. So the 3-foot parallel, I thought, the design of it and whatnot would open up the view for the neighbors to see down through, and it would, again, won't have to restructure the foundation and disturb the soil anymore, because the lolly column is down there already, and that's when he cuts it back so it's where it's 3 feet, it would just be at the end of that support. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? That's it.
Let's bring it to a close.
Pardon me?
Close the public and we'll go into deliberation.
We're going to close the public section of this. Gentlemen, let's discuss what we need to do. On the on variance from Article XX1X, I believe that's the shoreline protection. That's trying to get the, and that's what we addressed in the motion that was made, which was, the motion was made to have the Board of Adjustment issue a special exemption, blah, blah, blah.
Are we talking about a variance, or are we talking about a special exception?
Well, the first one was the shoreline protection. I'm looking at the three requests, the three we need, okay? And the one is the variance from article, that's the shoreline permit, and the special exemption and the variance. That's a variance from article.
So, well, you're looking at section 29?
XX1X, section 3. Yeah.
Yeah, but, okay, so
That I believe was what the building inspector referred to. I'm sorry,
but,
paperwork here, I'm trying to find it,
yeah,
because that's what we're back to.
in section 3, there's a provision for a special exception.
Yeah.
But one of the provisions for a special exception,
Yeah.
Item D says the design and construction of the proposed use will, to the extent, no, the one before that.
God damn it.
Section C, due to the provisions of the Shoreline Protection District, no reasonable or economic viable use of the lot can be made without exception.
Yeah.
That, obviously, I don't think that they are entitled to a special exception. They may be entitled to a variance to the shoreline protection. If you look at that same section, item 2A, which says that no building within 150 feet of the high water mark.
Yeah.
I think that is the portion of the ordinance that he needs a variance from.
Well, where do we stand, gentlemen? What do we want to do on the three requests that we're working with? Does anybody have a copy of for some reason, I've got so much paperwork, and I apologize for that, what Shanti, the building inspector, put on the bottom of their application?
But the question is, what have the Dohertys asked for?
The Dohertys asked for, the only thing that was on the bottom of the application, unfortunately, the three that evidently he sent to them, and our secretary didn't attach it to any of the forms that we had, and we didn't find out about that till last month. Yeah, I have that, Jim, but on the bottom of the,
Those are the same three that are listed on.
are they? Okay. I thought one said Shoreline, but well, that's what that is, an XX1X, okay. All right.
That's what.
Okay, okay, all right, okay,
And that's the decision that you made in April.
okay.
You still have to decide on.
Yeah, those are the same three.
Yeah.
The ones that you have in your packet, which is number 11,
Yeah,
which is the special exception.
okay. Okay. Is there any discussion, additional discussion on the Article XX1X, Section 3A, which is the shoreline?
But what are we trying to do?
We're, as if this was a beginning over again, Roger, that's what we're doing.
Exactly.
So we're
That's
gonna,
what in terms of Section 29, I think clearly they're not entitled to a special exception.
It's more the variance.
But they might be entitled to a variance to Section 2A.
Yep.
And in that case, if we wanted to discuss that, then we would have to go through the variance criteria for deciding whether or not they should give them a variance to build within 150 feet of the high water mark.
well, that's the shoreline protection permit, which we did approve in April, but we added the, yes, oh, definitely. I got it right here, Roger.
But we've rescinded that, so that
Yes,
doesn't,
I know.
that
That's,
doesn't
well, that's what I'm
exist.
saying, but it's still the same thing. It hasn't changed. The only difference is that we took, the 7 foot was in there. That's what we just rescinded. But the wording and everything else was still, if we approve it or deny it, it's basically that on that particular item. Because if you remember the way it was read in that, the conditions are found to be assessed, reference Newton tax laws, and be reviewed and enforced by the Newton building inspector. That's the way it was worded. Okay?
What are you looking at the decision?
Yes,
Can I see? I know, I've got it there. but
right there up top. Yeah,
There's a lot of,
yeah.
yeah, but that was to issue a special exception.
Right.
It didn't, okay, references, okay.
Okay. That's what was on the bottom of the
Right.
application. You know, it was rejected. Okay. Okay. So how do we want to work this, gentlemen? We're going to go through all three and either make a motion. The first one is that shoreline protection. And I can read the whole thing out if you want me to, but what the special exception is for under variance of X1. How do we want to word this? Is everybody up to date on XX, 1X? They got their book and read it? Okay. Yeah. Okay. If not, I'll look it up here for a second. Yeah. Okay.
Page 33.
Yeah, okay. Would anybody like me to read it? Does everybody have a copy of it? This is section XX1X Shoreline Protection District Overlay. Purpose, pursuant to RSA 674-16-6, the town of Newton hereby adopts the Newton Protection District accompanying regulations in order to protect and promote public health, resource conservation, and the general welfare too. And anyway, and if, does everybody have their book so they can read it?
I read it before I
Yeah, I
came.
read it. Alan?
Yeah.
You all set with it, Mr. Gibbs? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And so I thought we would take each one of these and go through each one and either make a motion to up or down. Don't know what other way to process this whole thing. Okay. Yeah. It's been a while, so we've all had a little time to think about the whole item and whatever. No, leave it up to the board what they want to do. Yeah. Yes.
The board really only needs to deliberate on the original variance request, which is from Roman numeral 29, section 3A. In your book,
Yeah. Okay.
look for section 3A.
Yeah, 3A, which would be, right, okay, yeah.
That's the only
Yeah.
thing with the,
That is correct, that's exactly what the variance says.
right.
Yeah, any use otherwise permitted by the zoning ordinance and by state and federal laws that does not involve the erection of a structure and does not alter the surface configuration of the land by the addition or fill or by dredging, except as common treatment associated with a permit use. It provides that a buffer strip of natural vegetation, 75 feet in width along Country Pond and 50 feet in width elsewhere, to maintain between the area and use in the shoreline. That is what we're voting on, number 1A. Yeah. That is what we approved in April. We added the 7 feet at the end of that as a add-on. So. Someone like to make a motion?
Well, if we're talking about granting a variance, we're going to have to go through the criteria of the variance before we can vote.
Yeah.
Would you like me to call it?
Pardon me?
Would you like me to call the criteria?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Criteria 1, granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest. Would you like me to just call roll this?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Mr. Gibbs, how say you?
Aye.
Would you like to make a comment attached to that, please?
To make a variance that the deck should be 3.5 feet off the lot line?
No, I'm talking, no, we're not there yet. We're looking at,
Just whether granting this variance
Yeah.
would be contrary to the public
right.
granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest.
It's not a problem.
Yeah.
Mr. Hamel?
Yeah, considering the nature of that neighborhood, some building have, though I think it is contrary to the public interest to expand the size of the structure larger than it was previously.
That's a separate part. You're mixing apples and oranges on me. Is that a yes or a no to the criteria being met?
No. No, we're not actually voting. We're discussing each item. We're not actually voting on each item.
He's in the voting mode.
But we're not. It's a discussion
Am I
of
wrong?
each one. We only vote on after to grant or deny.
Okay,
We discuss each item.
okay, I thought you were taking votes,
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay.
That's why you can just have comments and not necessarily an aye or a nay.
But the I and A goes along with it, yeah. Yes, because of it, it can fail by the number of votes at the end. Who's up next?
Mr. French.
I agree. Any comment, Alan?
No, I don't see it contrary to public interest.
John? Yeah,
Could you repeat that?
I couldn't hear him. Alan, want to speak
He
up?
doesn't think
I
it's
don't see
contrary.
it contrary to public interest.
Alan, you have your mic on?
No.
Okay.
I got it right here somewhere.
Mr. Conley?
Given the neighborhood, I don't think it's contrary to the public interest. However, the comments adds character and worth is subjective, adds or increases resale value is subjective. So the reasoning I'll find fault in. And then we can argue later whether it's the overall footage and everything else. I'll leave it there.
Mr. Kozak?
Yeah, based on the piece of property and so forth, I don't think there's an issue with being not contrary to the public interest. I have no problem with it, yes. Yeah, okay. Are you going through the spirit, the next one?
I was just going to say, I'm assuming those are basically supporting or denying.
Okay, all right.
Second one, if the variance is granted, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed because Mr. Gibbs? If the variance were granted, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed.
Correct, yeah.
Mr. French?
Yes.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Kozak?
Yes, I don't believe we're all familiar with Wilder's Grove, and I think that the spirit of the ordinance would be observed. Yes.
Criteria 3, granting the variance would do substantial justice. Mr. Gibbs?
And grant justice to who?
Everybody.
Should be the majorities.
Aren't you glad you came back, Mike?
Yes, granting the variance would do justice.
No.
I'm not understanding the question as it pertains to this particular.
Well, this is number 3, substantial
I'm
justice.
reading it, but I'm
Okay.
not.
The benefit to the applicant shall not be outweighed by the harm to the general public or other individuals. Mr. Gibbs?
It would not, it won't do substantial justice.
So is that a no vote? Right.
Oh. It- Be a yes?
What was that?
Yes.
A yes, okay.
Mr. French,
Yes.
Mr. Hamel,
No, because you have to weigh the impact on the applicant and also on the abutters, and I think that this does not do justice, especially to the abutters.
Mr. Conley,
No. Especially to the abutters.
Mr. Kozak.
Yeah, if we read it that way, if substantial justice to be done, I guess I'm going to vote yes. I think substantial justice is done. Looking at that area, that's how I feel. Yeah.
Item 4, if the variance were granted, the values of the surrounding properties would not be diminished. Mr. Gibbs?
I feel the properties would not be diminished in value.
Mr. French?
Yes. Not be diminished.
Mr. Hamel?
I'm not sure. I think that obviously the property values of the applicant would be improved because it is a beautiful deck. But I'm not sure what effect it would have on the property values of the neighbors.
Is that a yay or a nay?
It's an explanation.
Okay.
How are you voting, yes or no?
We're only going to vote on whether or not.
Yeah,
to
we're
grant.
voting on,
We don't vote on every.
yes, we vote on each one of these,
We
yes or
will.
no?
Whether or not the criteria has
Right.
been met.
Yeah,
Okay, no.
okay.
Mr. Conley?
I would have to disagree with this. I think the value to the property owner is good. To the abutter trying to sell the property, this could be a negative. And so I would say that the property value may go down.
Mr. Kozak?
I don't think it would affect the property values, looking at that neighborhood in any place on 20 Wilders Grove. Whether we liked the deck or not, it was excellent, it looked good, and I think any abutter would look at it the same way. So I vote that yes. Yeah.
Okay. Item 5, unnecessary hardship. Owing to a special condition of the property that distinguishes it from other properties in the area, denial of the variance would result in unnecessary hardship because 1, no fair or substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of the provision to the property because or you can choose item 2, which is the proposed use is a reasonable one.
Yeah.
Mr. Gibbs.
Denial would be unnecessary hardship, and the proposal use is a reasonable one.
So is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. French.
Yes.
Mr. Hamel.
No, because it is not a hardship for him to have a deck the same size as the patio that he used to have.
Mr. Conley?
I would have to agree, there is no hardship. If they stayed within the existing footprint, I don't think we'd have been here. And I think under hardship, it does not exist, so no.
I'd have to agree with Mike that there is no hardship. I'm going to vote no. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, 4 of the 5 criteria were met.
Pardon me?
Only 4 of the 5 criteria were met.
So this was on A, gentlemen? This was on number 1?
Correct.
That means it failed.
No, we need to vote
Now
whether
we need to do the official.
to
Well,
deny or to,
well, Roger, excuse me. Depending on how those 5 pass, all 5 have to pass. Okay? We can vote on it again if you like, but all 5 have to pass.
well, we still need a vote to either, and if we
Right.
vote to deny, we need to give reasons why we deny.
That is
Exactly.
correct. That is correct. But it's failed, so think of that, okay? That's on number 1. Okay.
So while we're at number 1, do we go ahead and vote? Or are we going to go through all 3 and then go back?
Gentlemen,
I'm sorry, you have to take each variance separately.
separately, yeah,
So should we vote now and then go to the next one?
yeah, yes, yeah.
Thank you.
Someone like to make a motion that we vote up or down on variance request number 1, which is XX1X. Yeah,
I'll make
okay.
the motion that we take a vote on variance from Article XX1X, Section 3A.
Okay.
Because the structure is within the shoreland setback zone.
Second.
We have a second, Mr. Gibbs.
And can we enumerate what the reasons for the denial are, for the record?
You can say what.
The 5 criteria is only 4 passed. Is that what you said, Mr. Doggett? Was it? Yeah.
If I might suggest, first vote, then
Then the
state
reason.
why,
Yep.
Yeah.
so I can write it down.
Okay.
Mr. Gibbs?
Don't have a choice, you gotta vote no.
The motion is to deny the variance due to failure to meet all criteria.
No.
Mr. French?
No.
Mr. Hamel?
Aye.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Kozak?
Yes. There's no sense of going on.
That passed 3 to 2. Now if you'd like to list,
Pardon me?
now if you'd like to list the reasons.
The item that there was a majority of the board, criteria that the majority of the board felt was deficient is the hardship one.
Correct.
So the reason is because there was no demonstrated hardship that the deck needed to be larger than the previous structure that the deck has replaced.
Yeah. There's no sense in going on.
We still have to, unless authorities withdraw.
Yeah. Well, we're in a tough place. We're in a tough place here. Yeah. So this is a no.
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to read them?
I'm sorry, what,
Would you like me to read?
the next one?
Right.
Yeah, you might as well, we'll go through it, yeah, we might as well. But no matter what happens, just so the Doherty's aware of it, just one failure, which this just failed, number one, then no matter what happens with the other two, or your requests fail.
Second variance is for section Roman numeral 11, non-conforming lot structures and uses, amended March 2000.
Yeah.
Extension of non-conforming structures. Excuse me just one
And now this is a special exemption.
Right.
No, this is the variance to allow the special
Special
exception.
exception.
But you can't do that. You can't make a variance to allow a special exception. You deny the special exception, and then you could give a
Okay,
variance to
then
the underlying.
I'll just flip my stacks of paper.
To the underlying
Yeah.
thing. Like in this case, it would be a question of the side lot. You know, because it's larger than it's an expansion of the footprint, I think he is not entitled to the special exception. But if we were going forward with it, then the question would be, would he get a variance to the side yard?
Mr. Chair, I'll read the special exception. Special exception, a special exception under this subsection may be granted only as expansion into side, front, and rear setbacks, and is not available for expansions from violated height restrictions of this ordinance. Criteria 1, the proposed expansion must...
Excuse me, where are you reading from?
I'm reading from the special exception.
Yeah, section X1, Article 3.
Yes.
It's on page,
Oh, okay, the beginning of it, okay.
yeah,
Thank you.
Okay. Criteria 1, the proposed expansion must intrude no further into any setback area than does the existing structure. Mr. Gibbs?
Question again?
Yeah, but we don't have to go through each.
No, we don't have to go through the
This isn't like a
criteria.
variance. We
Right.
don't have to go through each
criteria.
criteria.
Okay, well, there are,
Right, we can discuss them all at once and just,
Right,
okay.
yeah.
yeah, we don't have to vote on each one of these.
That's great, somebody can make a motion one way or the other, yeah.
Do you want the motion for discussion or for vote?
Discussion right now. Anybody have any comments? Open for discussion, gentlemen. Everybody knows what it's, as he just read it, correct? Yeah?
So what, you ready for a motion?
Ready for a motion, yeah? Yeah,
Make a motion to deny the special exception because the proposed structure intrudes further into the setback than the existing structure. And also because it exceeds the footprint of the square footage of the portion of the structure which is there. So it's both 3A and 3E.
I hear a second.
Second.
Mr. Conley, second. Any further discussion before we take a vote, gentlemen? Call the vote.
Just I wanted to just double check with Mr. Himmel, that's criteria 1 and 5 are not met.
Well, in the ordinance, it's A-B, it's A&E. They're letters, at least in my version of the ordinance.
Oh, I apologize, I'm using
Yeah.
my forms are based on the state.
Oh,
So it's A and E.
yes.
Mr. Gibbs?
No.
Mr. French?
No.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Kozak?
Yes.
That passed 4-2. So
There's only 5 of us.
3-2.
3-2, sorry. Wrote it right, said it wrong. And for that, should I put down that the reason for the denial is A and E? Next would come a motion for a variance for
X1,
A and E.
right. You want to, you have in front of you, read it out loud, Jim, please?
Why do we have, one with a request for the special exception, and what's this one for?
Variance from X1,
Oh,
The variance is for the special exception on the sections that were denied.
oh,
In which case, item A is that the proposed expansion must intrude no further into any setback area than does the existing structure. And E, that portion of the proposed expansion which will intrude into the setback must in no event exceed the footprint square footage of that portion of the structure which presently intrudes into the setback, regardless of the number of applications made over time under the subsection. And when they refer to presently, they're referring to the original
right,
structure, not the structure as it is built now.
right.
So, Mr. Gibbs, do you believe that giving a variance for those two would not be contrary to the public interest?
Correct. Yeah.
Mr. French?
yes.
Mr. Hamel?
I believe that this request is not before us properly, because you don't give variances to special exceptions. That's not, you give variances to the underlying,
This was from the building inspector. Yeah, I know.
that's fine.
Yeah,
I don't know how many zoning board training sessions he's gone to, and I'm sure, and it's good that he has pointed out that it's an issue, but I don't believe that it's properly, a proper question for us to address.
So your vote on this is yes or no?
I choose not to vote because it is not a, like I said, it's not a question that should be before us.
Roger, you have to answer it one way or the other, please.
I believe he can sustain.
I abstain.
Like, yeah,
Tommy?
He can sustain.
I'm sorry, what?
I believe he
know we
can
get that.
sustain.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Mike? You're up.
Mr. Conley?
I just want to say I think Roger is correct, but in the spirit of this, I'm going to move forward with a no.
Mr.
No.
But I do think we need to circle back with the building inspector and have that addressed.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'll move along to variance 2. If the variance were granted, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed. Mr. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. French?
Yes.
Mr. Hamel? You can say the same thing over
No,
again.
actually, as I was listening to Mr. Connolly, he has convinced me that the more appropriate way to go is to vote no.
No. Mr. Conley?
That did get on record, right? I just wanted to make sure that I got. I'm, in the spirit, I'm going to say no.
I will agree with Mr. Conley. and
Mr.
vote no.
Kozak? Okay. Granting the variance would do substantial justice. Mr. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. French?
Yes.
Mr. Hamel?
No, and, yeah, okay, yeah, right. In this case, seeing that we are, going to go along and vote, the reason is because of the impact upon the abutters.
Thank you. Mr. Conley?
No. Yeah, I'll say the same thing. I think it's the impact on the abutters.
Mr. Kozak? Criteria 4, if the variance were granted, the values of the surrounding properties would not be diminished. Mr. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. French?
Yes.
Mr. Hamel?
Much like I said when the last, on the other one, when we were talking about values, I think, the applicant hasn't demonstrated that there wouldn't be an impact, so I'm going to say no.
No, I agree with Mr. Hamel.
Is that a yay or a nay?
But I'm a nay.
Sorry.
Thank you. Mr. Conley?
I'm yes, I don't see it affecting the property values at all.
Thank you. Unnecessary hardship. Owing to the special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, denial of the variance will result in unnecessary hardship. Mr. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. French?
Yes.
Mr. Hamel?
No.
Mr. Conley?
No.
Mr. Kozak? Mr. Chairman, none of the criteria were met for this.
Pardon me?
None of the criteria were met for the
None of the criteria were met, all 5 were no. Would someone like to make a motion that we say, just confirming what we already did? Just deny variance X13, okay?
I make a motion that we deny variance from X1-3A because you can't meet the first criteria of the special exception requirements. Note that Mr. Hamel's suggestion that we talk to the building inspector on that as well.
Do we have a second?
I'll second. We could also add E into that, or is that not on his list?
It's not on it, just A.
Not on my list,
Oh,
A.
Just A,
okay.
yeah. Yeah. Did you say you seconded?
I did say I second, yes.
Yep.
Okay. Any more discussion, gentlemen? Okay. Yeah. Take a roll call. Administrative Secretary, please. Roll call vote.
Mr. Gibbs?
No.
Mr. French?
Aye.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
What are we doing a roll call on except, yeah,
This is the final denial.
yeah, yes. Sorry, just want to make sure it's clear.
Mr. Kozak?
Yes.
That's 4-1.
Let's see, where do we go from there? The request is dead.
McSweeney's next, right?
Pardon me?
We're going to McSweeney?
Well, we gotta end this one here.
Yeah.
We're gonna, there's no further discussion on 20 Wilders Grove. The vote was to deny the request. We're gonna close the hearing for 20 Wilders Grove.
This is not on the agenda. Do we need to vote on this?
Pardon me?
This is
Mr.
not-
Doggett. The decision will be available when?
I will probably be typing it Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah.
All depends on my schedule.
Okay. We're going to open the hearing for Arthur and Sharon McSweeney of Chelmsford, Mass., requesting a special exemption and various relief for ordinance X1 non-conforming lots. Structure and use of Section 3 expansion. Wait till everybody leaves, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry, I just want to read this out loud so everybody's aware of it. I'm sorry. There was so much noise, I thought I should repeat it. Arthur and Sharon McSweeney of Chelmsford, Massachusetts request a special exemption and variance and relief of ordinance X1 non-conforming lots, structure and uses. Section 3 expansion of a non-conforming structure for their property at 28 Waters Grove. The property is referred to as tax map 2, building 4, lot 27. During this meeting, the public can speak. This is a public hearing. You've got the floor, Ms. McSweeney. Okay.
Yeah, based on the last meeting, I was asked to add the septic system
Yeah.
onto the drawing.
Oh, yeah, we have the, by the way, I can tell you, we found the shoreline protection permit.
Excellent.
My apologies, I thought it went out in the original board pack.
Upside down.
Is there a water bubble in here?
So I was asked to
in
add
the building?
that, and then
Downstairs, I think.
I was asked to add a crosshatch on the existing structure, the main house, where I'm going to remove 8 feet. So the house is going to be 8 feet bigger, but I'm going to remove 8 feet, so the new addition will be 16 feet. So that wasn't clear in the last iteration of the drawing, so crosshatch area was added to reflect that.
I think we can tell the policeman they can leave. Yeah.
Okay.
You can leave if you'd like. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Bye.
I didn't realize he was.
Yeah, I just looked up and he was there. This is not okay. So anyway, what kind of questions do we have for this gentleman? Did everybody get a copy of the shoreline protection permit?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And let's see, Sweeney. And so the septic system is on here now. Is that all that was missing, gentlemen, from the plans? I thought there was something else that someone had a question with Mr. Gibbs.
No, the measurements are on there.
Pardon me?
The measurements are on there that I asked for.
All right. So where is this, okay, this is the proposed here, for again, concrete dry well. That's the dry well. Okay. What do you think, Alan? What's he looking for?
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky with the amount of distance that we have from the street, so that's the direction that we're going.
Any questions for the applicant, gentlemen? I think he covered and everything that was requested of him. Roger, you got a copy of the plans that are there?
Yeah, I got a copy of the plans.
Okay.
That's mine, actually.
Okay,
But
that's yours.
I'm not going to spread it
Yeah,
all over
right.
the place here.
Give Roger a second to find.
Yeah, I'm looking for exactly what is being requested.
What is being requested?
Yes.
A special exemption from section X1 and Article 3, and a variance from section XX1S, which is the shoreline protection permit.
Yeah, I'm expanding the structure.
Yeah.
I'm expanding a non-conforming structure, but the direction that the new addition is going is I meet the 65-foot setback from the street. And that's the direction that the addition's going in. I'm also going to cut the garage down from 20 by 20 to 14 by 20 so I can have better access to the front yard.
Yeah.
I think that's
So the pond is
clear
over
on the
here.
drawing. You'll see a garage out by the street, and it shows the existing and the proposed.
So you do
In this case, the proposed is smaller.
existing two-bedroom.
Want to make things
But
bigger.
you're asking for a special exception, and then you're asking for a variance from the special exception?
Well,
I think the
these are the
special-
reasons, excuse me, I'm sorry, these are the denials, denied. Need special exemption for section X1 Article E, which is a non-conforming lot, I think, right? And the other one is the shoreline protection permit.
Yeah, we don't have any, I don't know if you didn't put that one in my,
No, I didn't receive
well, actually, he doesn't need one.
Pardon me?
All of your construction, is it more than 150 feet from the high water mark of the pond?
These are the building inspection's denial. Excuse me, I'm
No,
sorry.
well, that's the whole point of the Shoreline Protection Act. I've
Right,
got
yeah.
that approved by the state, so
Right, yeah.
I can save you the time.
Yeah,
It's
you got
not 100.
one for the, it's kind of a formality, you get one for the state. and
Right.
You have to.
But no,
Right.
because our rules are different than the state's rules.
Well, I know,
So we
okay,
have
but that's why he needs a variance from the, these are the denials from the,
Why does he need a variance from that? If he's,
Mr. Chairman.
yes.
Mr. Hamel,
Yes.
the entire structure is within the shoreline setback.
okay, so the entire building is within 100?
However, he is building on the
Upland side.
upland side.
Right.
However, he still needs
Still within 150 feet of the
basically a
pond.
blanket variance
Yeah.
from the shoreline protection aspect.
Right.
Even though it's not impacting the water, it's not on the
Correct.
water side. As I've been informed, it's on the back side of the house.
Yeah, I think everybody had the same question, but.
Street side,
The street side, yeah.
street side.
But, yeah, okay, so it is within 150 feet, but it's not going to be impacting the pond.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? I'll turn it over, see if the public has any questions. Gentlemen, we all through with our questions for the time being? Anybody from the
being.
public would like to speak?
Oh, okay, I do have one. Mr. Sweeney, don't leave the podium, please. Just to put it again on the record. So the house is not parallel to the property line, correct?
Yes, it's slightly off.
I was always gonna,
So if you extend the house, it then gets to be closer to the property line than anything which currently
open it to
there.
I think that's true. I think it's measured at an inch.
Okay.
The existing
So-
is 3.3, proposed corner is 3.1.
measured in
0.2 inch.
tenths, not inches.
So 2/10 of an inch,
0.2 inch.
right? Is that? 2 Oh, so this is in feet, okay, so it's not in inches, okay. So 2 inches. Okay. I'm done.
Anybody from the public like to speak?
Hi, I'm Lisa Forty from 26 Wilders Grove Road. I'm abutting Jay and Sharon, and we don't oppose any of
Can I have your name?
Lisa Forty. Sorry, Forte.
Thank you.
And we do not oppose what they've presented. We've gone through this for a long time.
And you're on the side that is getting 2 inches closer to you.
Yes. We already talked about windows and how everything's going to be laid out, and yeah, we in agreement with what they're doing. That's it.
Well, thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Want to go through the criteria?
We ready to go through the criteria, gentlemen, or Roger, do you still have some questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
Would you like us to wait a couple of moments?
You can get started.
Mr. Doggett, will you start going through the 5 criteria, please?
For the,
This would be for,
sorry,
the variance for
this is for the variance from,
the shoreline protection permit. Yeah, XX 1X, Article 3A.
regarding the shoreline protection. Item 1, granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest. Mr. Gibbs?
Yes, correct. It would not be a contrary.
Mr. French?
Would not be contrary.
Mr. Hamel?
Did they present how they met the criteria? I didn't see that in that packet.
Yeah, it's, is it in the, here, wait a second, I'm looking here.
I received applications for a variant, for a special exception and a variance for the special exception.
Yeah, you see, in the past, we've been just doing
I apologize. These are some of the first
Okay.
Yeah.
instances of these public hearings.
Okay.
That is,
That's fine.
But prior to that, on the variance for, he's got a variance here, we've associated as, and we've issued several of those shoreline protection permits, and they all say the same thing, the wording is all the same.
okay.
And it does not say variance. Just let me read what I have in here. Okay. I'll find it in a second here, be patient, I've got a lot of paperwork here. I think it's here. we've always said issue a special exemption for XX10. Never said a variance.
Okay.
I'm not sure if he meant, because that's what we've always done. Does everybody agree? We've issued, I think, 3 or 4 of these in the last 2 or 3 months. And the wording's always been the same. Because I have a copy of the last one that we did. You know, and it always says I have a special exemption to blah, blah, blah.
Right.
It's as opposed to a variance. We agree,
I
gentlemen?
agree with that.
No?
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
Okay, then if you're doing a special exception, that has 6 criteria.
okay. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
Change the-
Actually, for this one, he should be getting a variance for the shoreline protection.
I'm just telling you what we've done in the last several, Roger, okay?
yeah.
And they've all been worded the same.
Uh-huh,
We never went through criteria for any one of them.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, you know, how we go this route is, I'm just one person here,
But
gentlemen.
see, the problem is that if you look at the criteria for a special exception in the wetland, in the shoreline protection, he's not gonna qualify.
None of them will.
Right, but as, for a
And that's why we've
For a
always,
variance to the shoreline protection, he may very well qualify.
well, evidently, our building inspector's okayed with these, because that's what's happened on the last 3 or 4 that we've issued. Do we want to stay the same, gentlemen? That's all I'm asking, or you want to say variance as opposed to special exception?
No, special exception.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, we'll go that route then. Say with the special exemption.
Okay, then I'll move to the
Okay, yeah,
special exception criteria.
yeah.
Okay, gentlemen, there are 6. Criteria 1, the proposed expansion must intrude no further into any setback area than does the existing structure. Mr.
You're
Gibbs?
reading the special exception to which,
This is a special exception for expansion into the side, front, and rear setbacks.
Is that the shoreline protection?
no, that's
No,
what I'm saying. You're in the wrong
You're in
section
the
of
wrong
the
one.
ordinance.
Okay, I apologize.
That's okay.
This is based on what I have for, let me see if there's something in the packet that,
No, quite all right.
if you give me just a minute, gentlemen, I
Not the
think
end of the, not the end of the.
I can give you the language.
Yeah, see, because the building inspector says he needs a variance for the shoreline protection, which is correct. That's what he needs.
I'm sorry,
The
Roger.
building inspector says he needs a variance to,
I see that, but he
The
said that in every one we've done is, we haven't issued a variance, we've issued a special exception. Just, what does the majority want to feel? Do we leave it as special exemption, which I think is more appropriate for these, but
but if you read the requirements for a special exception to the,
shoreline protection permit.
he's not, they don't qualify.
All right. Yep, every one we issue wouldn't qualify.
But you could,
That's why
that's why you should
that's
give
why-
them a variance and not a
Well,
special
what's the
exception.
difference between a special exemption and a variance?
It's a completely separate section of the law,
Okay, all right, that's what,
with completely different criteria.
so gentlemen, we want to change this to variance then, correct? Let's go this route. Is that fine with everyone?
Whichever way it
Let's
makes
take a
it.
poll. Which way do we want to go, gentlemen? Let's get this moving on. A special exemption or a variance?
Special exception.
Alan,
Special exception.
Roger,
Variance.
Mike?
I think Roger's right. I think we have to go variance.
Pardon me?
I think it has to go, I think Roger's right.
Yeah, I think he has a very valid point. Okay, then it's the wording would have to be changed to a variance. Okay, all right. We agree on that, then, 3-2 for Paul. Okay. So Jim, we are going to treat it as a variance.
Thank God you brought an eraser.
So it's a variance to 29 2A.
No, where are you getting this, Roger? It's section XX1X.
That's 29 in
That's
Roman.
29.
Okay, oh, that's the bottom line, okay. Article 3A is what he's saying
Right.
here.
That is that the proposed expansion must intrude no further into any setback area than does the
Okay,
existing
all right.
structure.
Okay.
But that isn't, well,
Okay.
It's gonna by 2 inches.
no, that's, we're talking about the other way. Not,
I mean, he said side setback.
Okay. Criteria 1. Granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest. Mr. Gibbs?
Yes, it would not be. Yeah. Yes.
Mr. French?
Yes, would not be.
Mr. Hamel?
it would not be. So that's a yes.
Mr. Conley?
Would not be, yes.
Mr. Kozak?
Yes, I agree. Not be.
If the variance were granted, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed. Mr. Gibbs?
No.
Oh, okay. Mr. French?
Yes.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Kozak?
Yes.
Sorry. Item 3, granting the variance would do substantial justice. Mr. Gibbs?
No.
Mr. French?
Yes.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Kozak?
Yes.
Number 4, if the variance were granted, the values of the surrounding properties would not be diminished. Mr. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. French?
No.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Kozak?
Yes.
Unnecessary hardship. Owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, denial of the variance would result in unnecessary hardship. Mr. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. French?
Yes.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Kozak?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, all criteria have been met.
Just need a motion to vote. Did you hear Mr. Doggett? All 5 passed. Someone make a motion that we either up or down? Has to be an up because they all 5 passed, gentlemen. Okay.
I'll make the motion.
To this,
I'll make a motion to grant the variance from section XX1X, Article 3A.
excuse me, you might want to, this is what I've always put because there's some articles in there that if you want to read it over, just forget about the name and so forth. That way you put everything in there, okay?
Okay. Put me on the spot. All right, I'm going to make a motion to have the Board of Adjustment issue a special exception
No,
to...
we're going to do variance as opposed to the special exemption.
Strike that.
Right, that's okay.
A variance to Arthur McSweeney, located at 28 Wilders Grove Road.
No.
Where's the tax map?
28.
We have the map on there and so
I
forth.
said 28.
28, not 20.
I said 28.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm trying to find out where it is.
with my mask on, I can't
It's,
hear so good.
Mr. Chairman, if you want, you can just make the motion to grant the exception. This is all boilerplate
Okay.
that I use
Okay.
in my notice of
Okay,
decision.
all right. Fine, and that's easy, okay. Sorry.
Made the, that's
you.
my motion.
Yeah.
So the original motion was move to grant the variance to Roman
Section.
numeral 29, Section 3A.
A.
Right, got it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Second.
And a second by Roger.
Do you want a roll call vote, or do you just want,
Pardon me?
do you want a roll call
Roll
vote
call
again?
vote, please.
Mr. Gibbs?
This is on the shoreline protection?
Yeah,
Yes.
This is to Section A,
Right, right.
which is the
okay.
restriction on building.
Aye.
Mr. French?
aye.
Mr. Hamel?
Aye.
Mr. Conley?
Aye.
Mr. Kozak?
Aye. Motion carries.
That's unanimous.
Okay. Now we're going to be discussing the special exemption from Section X1, Article 3, which is,
Which is the,
non-conforming.
a special exception under this subsection may be granted only to the expansion into the side, front, and rear setbacks and is not available for expansion which violate height restrictions of this ordinance. Okay, you want me to go through each of the criteria?
You might as well, we've gone this far, yes, yeah. Yeah.
Criteria 1, the proposed expansion must intrude no further into any setback area than does the existing structure. Mr. Gibbs?
No.
Mr. French?
No.
Mr. Hamel?
I'm going to say yes, because I think 2 inches is a de minimis infraction. And I said yes, because 2 inches is a de minimis amount.
Mr. Conley?
I'm going to say yes, based on Roger, but also add that there was an abutter here that it was discussed within the 2 inches was not unreasonable.
Mr. Kozak?
Yes, yeah.
Criteria 2, the expansion must have no further adverse impact on the view, light, and air of any abutter. Mr. Gibbs?
I agree.
Agree?
Yes, yeah.
Mr. French?
Agree.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Kozak?
Yes.
Criteria 4, the expansion must not cause property values to deteriorate. Mr. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. French?
Agree.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Kozak?
Yes.
Criteria 4, the expansion must not impede existing rights of access or egress. Mr. Gibbs?
Aye. Yes.
Mr. French?
Agree.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Agree.
Mr. Kozak?
Agree, yes.
Criteria 5, the portion of the proposed expansion which will intrude into the setback must in no event exceed the footprint square footage of that portion of the structure which presently intrudes into the setback, regardless of the number of applications made over time under this subsection. Mr. Gibbs?
No.
Mr. French?
Yes.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes, because the addition to the building is smaller than the amount of the garage that's being torn down. So the total square footage is not being increased. Even though they're sort of in very different places, but the square footage is still all there. So with a yes, with a lot of other.
That's okay. I apologize. With the mask and the distance, I can't tell you exactly what you just said. Mr. Conley?
Agree.
Mr. Kozak?
Agree.
Criteria 6. In the event the nonconforming structure contains a commercial use, there must be no adverse impact on access, traffic, parking, lighting, or other safety or visibility features of the existing structure.
I don't even think that applies, do you?
No, it does.
Do they allow you to vote non-applicable?
Yeah, I think we can say that just
Yeah,
doesn't apply.
Exactly, right. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Is it a consensus of the board that this criteria is not applicable to this application?
Yeah,
Yes.
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 Definitely, yeah.
Mr. Chair, the criteria were met.
Okay. Did you hear that, gentlemen? All 5 passed. Someone would like to make a motion? Yeah.
Make a motion for a special exception from section X1, Article 3.
Second?
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Gibbs?
No.
Mr. French?
Yes.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Kozak?
Yes.
On a vote of 4 to 1, that passed.
Both the special exemption and the variance have been granted, Mr. Conley. Yeah. You'll be notified in, what, Jim, how many days? Does the notification go out to the,
I should be doing them Thursday morning or Friday.
just so you know, Mr. Sweeney,
Yeah, give them the
if
30-day
somebody
warning.
has a complaint, they have up to 30 days to come up and submit new information to try to stop your project. Okay? Can you leave one of these for us?
Yeah, you guys.
Okay, yep.
You want to take this back? Yep.
We're going to keep this for our files. I'll leave this right here for the time being.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have,
We're on the hearing.
As
for
long
the-
as I have one, I need 2 copies for the files.
there are 2 there?
There's one there. I gave him mine. He's going to need one more. There we
There's
go.
2.
2. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. We end the hearing for the Sweeneys at 9:09 PM.
Take it easy.
We're going to open the hearing for Mr. and Mrs. Card. Mr. Card, would you like to, or your representative? Okay.
Evening, gentlemen. I would like to present plans with one additional piece of information that was requested at the preliminary hearing.
Yeah.
Actually, just the dimension on that one gable end with the roof as opposed to what the foundation dimension had been. So,
Is that the one, is that the new one? Do we all have that? No, okay, so, okay, let's revise, okay.
Easy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we don't mix them up.
Yeah.
You don't even have to play nice.
All right, we're just gonna share one, okay?
Basically being the gable end, baseboard,
Couple inches. Yep.
Mr. Card?
Do you have the application for?
I
building
need two
inspector?
for the file, so I'll take this and I'll get it.
Okay.
Hang on.
So what you have before you is something that does fall just under the special exception in the way that this structure is greater than 150 feet from Country Pond, being on the backside of Wilders Grove Road and everything. But it is jurisdiction under the state shoreline because it is within 250 feet. So basically between the town regs and the state regs is a 100-foot difference. We do have our shoreline permit, which is in the previous packet.
Yes,
You do
we have.
have the approved septic permit, which was in the previous packet and so forth. I've provided the 5-foot dimension is still to the foundation, which is what the state criteria goes by. I've added the 4.8 feet, which basically being the gable end of the house, you have fascia board and the little metal drip edge, so basically adds that 2 inches of roof line to that dimension. The purpose of this whole special exception is that we need to move the house, and being a special exception because this is a pre-existing non-conforming lot. The existing structure, as you can see there, is actually on the furthest corner, 1.9 feet over the lot line. So we actually have an encroachment on an abutting property that we're trying to rectify here. So,
That's, you found there was an error or something in that, the property line?
well, it was just built way back before this was surveyed or anything. I mean, this is an older structure, like 90% of the houses along that street.
And how are things with the abutter when you? when it was-
She's endorsed that.
Okay.
She, provided a letter to the state saying that, obviously she would like to relieve the encroachment and so forth. And because we're actually making that setback greater, and we're not encroaching on the opposite side setback with, that we still meet the setback to the other property line by town code. So basically, it's just a straightforward, simple, special exception on the basis of pre-existing non-conformance, okay? And everything that we're doing here is making it more conforming in every way, so, to the existing condition, so.
Now, the square footage of the new structure?
Same footprint as the
is
previous.
exactly the same as the old structure?
Yes. That was also
Except
stated,
that it's on
stated
its
in.
own land. Except that it's on its own.
Yeah, right, except that it's 5 feet within its own land now,
Right.
right.
Yep.
Right, so now there's no, which, speaks to abutting properties and everything else. I mean, obviously, when it was an encroaching, that really makes a severe impact to that abutter, so by pulling it further away now, there would never be any encumbrances to her selling that property in the least, so.
Any more discussion, gentlemen? There's no abutters here or anything, so I'm not going to ask anybody else to speak. Would Mr. and Mrs. Card like to say anything, or? Okay. All right. You're being quiet, Barbara? But yeah. Any other questions, gentlemen, before we start going through the criteria? Alan?
No?
Yeah. You happy with the plans there, Mr. Gibbs?
Yep.
Okay. That mask, I can't tell.
I know.
I can't tell if he's smiling at us or, Roger, you all set? With
I'm
the-
all set.
Okay.
All I know is he agreed with me today, so I'm good.
Mike, we can go through the criteria for, which one you want to do first, the variance?
I'm not putting that. Mr. Hamel, would you prefer to do the variance first or the?
What's he asking for a variance for?
We're not.
I was going to say.
We filed for a special exception only.
Yeah, that should be all,
Yes,
that's
yes,
all he needs.
Well, yeah,
Special exception.
but the Shoreline they need a shoreline protection permit.
No,
No,
we
they-
don't,
they-
not
they're
by
not
town statute. We're
No.
greater than 150 feet away from the
You
shoreline.
needed state, correct?
Correct, which we do
we already
have,
have.
which we do have.
Right.
According to, I've just got, this is from the building inspector. He does this, okay? And that's the variance from Article XX1, that's the shoreline protection permit.
I don't know why, we don't meet the
And
criteria
send
though.
them a note.
And, you know, and this is the other thing is, and it's on the denial. That's what he's asking for, okay? It's simple to go, to get
Yeah,
it
if you
now
guys want to
because-
go through it,
because I'm
but I'm
assuming
just
that if
saying,
you- yeah.
the physical structure
Yeah.
is greater than 150 feet from the shore, so.
We-
So think about
See,
this.
he says here, variance for article, which is the shoreline protection, due to the structure located within the shoreline.
But it isn't.
Yeah, Roger, I'm just saying, all I'm saying, sir, is,
Can't
you know, if you
can't we
go
just
back to the, if
accept
he goes,
what we're supposed to accept with a note back to the building inspector that
Yeah.
this wasn't needed.
Right.
So we're not taking it up to vote because it's not needed.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
how do you want to handle this? Give him this,
Send the building inspector a note that the zoning board looked at this and find that we don't need a variance.
excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt you guys, but I think the easiest thing to do is give him the shoreline protection permit, which is pretty simple to do. That way, if they want to start construction right away, they can start moving ahead. Who knows what the building inspector will say? He's going to go out there with his ruler and come up with 149 feet. I don't know. That's all I'm saying.
No, I think we take it up and do the correct vote, send the note back to the building inspector and have it corrected going forward so we don't deal with this going forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Our administrative secretary has a comment. Yes.
It's assistant. I was just going to say, if you wish to take a vote that aspect is not applicable to
To the approval,
approval. The other two, you still have to do. You
Yes.
still have to do because it's a non-conforming lot.
Yep, oh yeah.
But if somebody wants to make a motion, I will explain it to the,
You there with,
Make a motion that we convey to the building inspector that this plan does not require a variance
Right.
to the shoreline protection ordinance
in reference to-
town.
yeah.
from the town.
From the town,
Town, that's correct.
because there is no activity within 150 feet of the shoreline.
Correct.
Right.
Second.
Roll call vote, Jim, please.
I just want to let you know one item.
Okay.
Something that Ms. Cod and I discovered when we were looking up the property. I've already put in a request for a correction to the tax map because at present, 1A is listed as being right on the water. It isn't. They have to flip it. It goes on the other when you come onto,
Yeah,
I
the
call it
tax
the
maps have
island.
been in error forever.
Right, it's been a long, so the building inspector didn't do anything wrong. He just did not know that there was an error in the tax map.
Gotcha.
And I will explain all of that to him.
So we have a second.
Yeah. Mr. Gibbs?
Aye.
Mr. French?
Aye.
Mr. Hamel?
Aye.
Mr. Conley?
Aye.
Mr. Kozak?
Aye.
So that was unanimous.
I just want to make myself a note. I file these, and so the only thing that's needed is the special exemption under Section X1, Article 3, expansion of a non-conforming lot.
Right.
Okay.
And that will actually need the variance to Article 1. Sorry, Article A.
Special exemption,
No.
Right.
right. Okay.
So do you want to do the special exception first, or, actually, I should
This
be,
is it, this is the last one.
That's the only thing we're doing. We're doing one thing, so that's a special exception.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
okay.
Yeah, the last one is the shoreline protection permit that he has.
Right, already,
yeah,
He
he
got
already
from
has
the
that.
state, and he doesn't need one from us.
That's correct, yeah. So all we're gonna use is a, whoops, Scott.
Okay.
You see that, Jim? This was on the, this is the one we're gonna look at, because this is the shoreline
Right.
protection from the state that he already has.
Right.
That one there, you're gonna talk to the building inspector, so this one here.
No, this is the one I'm talking to the building inspector about.
Permit required, no, this top one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the shoreline protection permit. Okay, all right, thank you. Okay. So we just need to
I'm
go...
learning as fast as I can, but there aren't many courses. Okay, so we're on the,
Yeah, the special exemption for Section
Right.
X, 1, Article 3, expiration of a
Right.
expansion of a non-conforming structure.
correct. Criteria 1, the proposed expansion must intrude no further into any setback area does the existing structure. Mr. Gibbs.
Aye. Correct.
Mr. French.
Aye.
Mr. Hamel.
Aye.
Mr. Conley.
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Criteria 2, the expansion must have no further impact on the view, light, and air of any abutter. Mr. Gibbs.
Aye.
Mr. French.
Aye.
Mr. Hamel.
Aye.
Mr. Conley.
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Criteria 3, the expansion must not cause property values to deteriorate. Mr. Gibbs.
Aye.
Mr. French.
Aye.
Mr. Hamel.
Aye.
Mr. Conley.
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Criteria 4, the expansion must not impede existing rights of access or egress. Mr. Gibbs.
Aye.
Mr. French.
Aye.
Mr. Hamel.
Aye.
Mr. Conley.
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Criteria 4, that portion of the proposed expansion which will intrude into the setback must in no event exceed the footprint square footage of that portion of the structure which presently intrudes into the setback, regardless of the number of applications made over time under this subsection. Mr. Gibbs.
Aye.
Mr. French.
Aye.
Mr. Hamel.
Aye.
Mr. Conley.
Aye.
Mr. Kozak.
Aye.
Item 6, in the event the non-conforming structure contains a commercial use,
Not applicable.
would somebody like to make a motion that that is not applicable?
Yeah, right, yeah, okay. Okay.
Is that the consensus of the board?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, all criteria was met.
Beautiful. Would someone like to make a motion to grant the special exception? Mike, you can read this if you'd like to make the motion here.
The second one here?
Yes, second one, please, yeah.
I make a motion that we grant the special exception to Section XI, Article 3, expansion of a non-conforming structure.
Beautiful. Roll call vote, please.
Can I have a second?
Yeah, you, oh,
Thank you.
oh. Sorry there.
Mr. Gibbs?
Aye.
Mr. French?
Aye. He's gonna need a couple.
Mr. Hamel?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Conley?
Aye.
Mr. Kozak?
Aye.
That is unanimous.
Is that 2 for him? He's got 2? Okay.
The variance request is granted. And we're going to take care of the, you're all set. We're going to take care of the shoreline protection permit that he requested. Mr. Doggett is going to address that with the building inspector, so you are all set. Okay. Remember, you have 30 days, Barbara, Chris, I don't have to tell you that, in case one of your neighbors complain or something, but you can, yeah, it doesn't sound like you're going to have an issue.
Build at your own risk within 30.
Right, yeah. Going to close the public hearing for Mr. and Mrs. Card at 9:25 PM.
I have my two maps.
Okay.
Yep. Are we talking about this?
You want to, let's, acceptance of the minutes. Has everybody read the minutes from last month? From
Yes.
July? Any
You got your
corrections?
thermos?
Yeah. You didn't leave your water bottle here, did you, Barbara? Ha ha. You are.
Thank you.
Review of the minutes for July. Did everybody have a chance to read them? Any issues? Okay.
Good.
Make a motion that we accept.
Make a motion, we accept the minutes from
July.
July.
Yeah.
Second.
All those in favor?
All right,
Aye.
Unanimous, Jim. Okay. Okay, Mr. Conley would like
What you have in front of you is your first escrow account manifest.
Yep.
This money is now held in a separate account and will no longer be depleted from the operating budget of the ZBA.
Isn't that nice, gentlemen?
Yeah.
that's very
Yes.
nice. I do have a question. The petty cash,
Yes?
this is a separate petty cash from the planning board petty cash.
Oh, yes.
And
Yes.
how big an amount are you keeping in petty cash? Is it, I know that the planning board, there got to be issues about having enough money there to cover all of the expenses.
I will admit, I anticipate, right at the moment, if you look at the numbers that are on the sheet,
Yep.
you will see, sorry, I have to remember not to lean down. Boston Media, that has nothing to do with petty cash. However, the petty cash numbers are for things like abutter notices, registry fees, places that I have to use cash because the ZBA in and of itself does not have a checking account. Therefore, I have a petty cash bag which has an odd number. I believe it's $251. Don't know where it came from.
So you can't do electronic payments to
No, that's not legal for municipalities.
So,
to the newspapers for notification?
Excuse me?
To newspapers? Or is these a butter note? Oh, these are butter. I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
the legal ad, yes,
Yeah.
that gets sent in. They
No, I
bill
fully
us.
get it. I misread it.
Yeah.
So, Jim, let me understand how this works. So, let's say north of Boston, the first one up there is $120.49. Let's say that's the only one on here. So
Right.
they send a bill in, and how do they know it goes to our escrow account? When you fill out the information and so forth?
When I send in the ad,
Yeah,
You given a PO or some identification?
it comes from the ZBA office, and I've set it up at the present time so that the planning board ads and the ZBA ads show up on the same bill. If you look further back, you'll actually see a copy of the bill. The way I do it is you get a copy of the bill.
That
Oh,
wasn't on the
sorry,
table.
you don't have all the backup papers. I apologize.
Sorry, I didn't think I saw that.
What goes to the treasurer is an actual copy of the bill.
Yeah.
On it is the ad, and on it is a slip with a demand for payment. I make a copy of that. It also goes in the applicant's files. When the statement is made at the end of the application process, they get every applicant gets a copy of the bill for their particular abutters.
well, they do, okay, wow.
Yes, that's all part of the statement. I'll show you that once I have a chance to do that together. I've got that process all done. On this, the petty caches, actually at the moment it's below. However, I do anticipate there could be times when I may have to pull out my own plastic. I just did for the planning board a butter notice that was $994.
Coleman,
Excuse me?
was that Coleman?
Yes. That was 120-something abutters.
So my question then is, if we're gonna get, are we gonna get these updated on a regular basis?
Well, this gets, the chair actually signs this very copy.
Yeah.
I take it down and leave it with the treasurer. She gives me checks, I disperse the checks where they belong. In the future, I will be doing this usually the week, like the Friday prior to the meeting, crossing my fingers, and you will get it via email. So that I'm not printing out a fresh copy of this for
Oh, no, that's
everybody
fine.
each time. If anybody has any questions, feel free to call, and at the end of the meeting, if people want, I can show you, I've made up, there are 9 different things that will show up. This is a slip for demand for payment. Looks sort of like a check. There are 9 different rationales, whether it's abutter notices, registry fee, mileage to registry, legal ad, legal counsel, or engineer. You have the right, if you get something in and you need an engineer to look at it, I've got a slip for that, for the town engineer. You can actually charge back to applicants if you need legal review of documents. I have those sheets like this are already prepped up, and a couple that, well, I'll just make it simple. They're already done. No matter who's sitting here, they should be the same thing. They'll just have to change the name. I'm egotistical enough to put my name, to put my name
But
on.
you know what this means, guys? Instead of this, all these monies coming out of our budget, because now the money doesn't go into the town's treasurer, it stays within us. So maybe our budget will look better, well, the new one for next year, because the other one is all blown to hell, but.
Yes, I do have to let you know, your operating budget is in deficit.
I can't believe that, Jim.
So, I know, so what would be nice is, like, just at the beginning, we had if we could get the starting balance and an ending balance, so that we see cash in, expenses out.
I have that on a spreadsheet.
Okay,
This is an actual demand for payment, so this is, think
This
of
is what-
this,
okay, you
not
give
like a
this to-
check register, but like a bill that I'm giving to the treasurer.
yeah, like a PO saying, okay,
Yeah.
approved to pay it.
So,
And in our budget,
Mm-hmm.
if we have to go to court, let's say we had to go to court for some reason,
Mm-hmm.
is that coming out of our budget or the town's budget?
well, since there's nothing left in,
No, normally.
normally, I think it would depend upon,
I think we only had $1,000 for lawyer fees.
Really,
Right.
I think what's happened, because we had a lot of discussion in the planning board about this,
Yeah.
is, we have a budget for legal,
Yeah.
which is basically if we need to consult with a lawyer on a quick question.
Yeah.
But that's $1,000. You can blow through $1,000
Yeah.
pretty quick.
That's what we have.
5 hours right there.
exactly.
But, and if we go to court, actually, it's the town who goes to court and not us.
Right.
And it comes out of their money.
Okay.
Yeah, because our lawyer was several $1,000s for the Coleman case.
However, there could be occasions when
Some of this is
somebody comes in and they're asking for a variance and it's so convoluted that you really need the engineer to be able to look at and answer the question of,
Outside
is this
advice.
realistic?
Yep.
So the law gives the ZBA the ability to actually charge any of that back to a client.
Yep.
However, you will discover that, remember when I asked you to set the fees? Right at the moment, the amounts that people have been paying in have been covering things. The first one that I will be closing out, which will be on your next month's, and possibly some of these, is getting $70 back from his $250.
All right.
I could foresee with a larger number of abutters, them either getting zero back or going in deficit. And I will probably be proposing at the next meeting that you authorize the AA to be able to make a demand on applicants without having to come to the board.
To cover expense.
Right. You know, if suddenly there's $60 left and I know that there's going to be a $72 registry fee, I can't wait until the board has made that determination.
That's fair.
So what we need is a motion to sign, the chair to sign the manifest.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, gentlemen? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, Jim. Excuse me. Administrative assistant, I'm sorry.
If I may, I'm the last thing. Pretty soon I will drop off your agenda. Everybody received in your board packet a procedure for rehearings.
Yes.
I apologize, I can only keep up with trying to create stuff once it sort of pops up. If somebody would like to make a motion, that could be Appendix C to your rules of procedure. And that is, I'm sure Mr. Hamill probably may have some corrections or changes he'd like to see.
No, I didn't do that.
By your rules of procedure, it has to be noticed it doesn't have to go a legal ad, but it has to be put on the next agenda, and that document has to be posted so that people can read what the changes would be.
Now, I have one at the house that was previously given to me. I didn't get a new updated thing in this packet.
It was actually in the Doherty's packet. I think I made it sort of like the cover sheet for the Doherty's. It said rules for rehearing at the top. Very similar to the rules for public hearings and the.
I know I saw it somewhere.
If you want, I can wait a month.
Actually, it was stapled to this. The last page of that.
Oh, sorry, it's page 2.
3.
3.
Because page 2 is the Doherty decision, and then page
Okay.
3 is the.
By putting it on the next agenda, it can be adopted as your new Appendix C.
Okay.
And I will probably talk with Mr. Hamill and see if we can come up with rules for special exceptions, public hearings / special exceptions, just so that people in the public and future board members will be able to know, yes, we're following the proper procedure.
Yep.
I apologize if anything I did kind of messed up tonight.
Can I ask if you have the position?
Excuse me?
Can I ask if you have the position?
Which one was that, Mike?
I can't discuss that because
What the heck?
I'm not,
I
I'm
forgot
in
yourself.
limbo.
Is this one here?
Yeah.
No, I honestly, I don't
That's not the worksheet.
know. I've been
Worksheet for
informed to get ready
special
to
exemption.
train somebody who's
No,
returning.
It should be stapled. Make a motion, we close? No, we still open?
No, just a motion to add the,
Make a motion to post the proposed rehearing, the amendment to the rules of procedure that for
the August meeting. Thank you.
Yep.
for Appendix C.
Second.
Second.
Jack, you need to,
I mean,
all those in favor?
I'm sorry, what?
All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'm sorry, I was reading this.
That's okay. One thing, Mr. Chair, that I also put on here, and that was at the last meeting I was asked to look into the hybrid versus in-person meeting and how they work. The planning board's had one so far. They'll be having another one tomorrow night, hybrid meeting.
So
There are a couple of minor glitches, but that's something that if the board chose, they could adopt to go with a hybrid meeting or not. That's purely up to the board.
What do you gentlemen think? Hey, Alan, do you know what a hybrid meeting is? Yeah. Okay. Is that something you think you'd rather do than having our general meeting like this? No, I don't like it. He likes them, I know Alan.
Okay.
I don't like the Zoom at all. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
I do it all day long, so I'm comfortable. It doesn't bother me.
I do have wording if the board decides to do that. The selectmen have made it very strict. The planning board's option is much more liberal. Nobody allows you to use the chat feature, so you can't have people talking back and forth to each other. Believe it or not, the hybrid meeting would go pretty much like it went this evening. You have to have a roll call. However, it would allow, say Mr. Conley has to go to Paris for 2 weeks. You know, he'd be able to Zoom in. You have to have a physical majority present.
Here.
That's up, it's up to the board. Do I think there are a couple of glitches left to straighten out? Probably minor, but they're not with this system. They're with, we recently had somebody that came in that had a new mic, and we don't know what was wrong, but you could barely hear. You know, they had to, but that was their equipment process, not the town's equipment.
You want to think about this, gentlemen, and we'll maybe discuss it next month?
I think everybody should be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't,
I like it here, but I'm just one.
I mean,
Alan, of course, would prefer to have all the meetings here.
and in terms of like, you know, the example you gave of Mike being out of town, even under the current system, he could call in.
Right.
That is allowed by the rules. That,
Correct.
As long as so really what we're talking about is, do we want public participation at the meetings? And these tend not to have a whole lot of, I mean, there are a few, the applicant, I think it's very important for them to physically be here.
Yeah.
The abutters, usually if they really care, they show up anyway, and they still have the opportunity to put in a written comments if they can't make it. So I don't see any real reason to go get the extra technology. We can just stay with what we've got.
I don't know. I like it the way it is, but I'm just one. Alan, that's what he'd like, I know, and so, you know, it's
I'll just say that whether we agree to it tonight, we don't have to. We can discuss it down the line. Get comfortable with technology. It's here.
Yeah, it's
You're gonna have to.
yeah. I had the worst problems with Zoom at my house. Most of the time I couldn't hear anybody.
Zoom has trouble, and I would
Yeah.
convince, if I was to have a conversation with those in the town,
Yeah.
there are other platforms that are far better.
Really, yeah, yeah.
So Microsoft Teams, everybody has Microsoft, people that has their house. It's an application that works phenomenal. And matter of fact, I mean, that's how I conduct the majority of my meetings in a day. It's just the way it is right now. And if COVID comes back, and if you're looking at all the information that's out there, that's part of what I get updates on every day, be prepared to go back into another semi-formal shutdown.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to be prepared to deal with this for a
Yeah, I
while.
think that's a very good point. Yeah.
Would you like me to just leave this item on the agenda for the next?
Yes, that would be a good idea, Jim, yeah, okay. So, let's see, everybody signed the card for Tom. I went down and got the name of the,
End the meeting and then talk.
let's adjourn the meeting. Yeah.
No.
What? What, Alan?
No, I want to resign as vice chairman.
You do?
Yeah, I'd like to give it over to Frankie Gibbs.
Frank, are you interested in being the vice chair? No? Anybody want to volunteer to be the vice chair?
I just figured Frankie, because I figured Roger was already on the planning board.
Mike?
I'll take it if you guys want.
That's a good choice.
I'd like to nominate Mike for vice chair.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations, Mike.
Thank you. Yep.
Well, thank you, Alan. I know Alan's having some, well, let's adjourn the meeting first. There's nothing else that I have. There's no correspondence or anything, Jim?
Who seconded?
I did.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, I think Frank.
Okay, I'll give it to Mr. Gibbs.
Yeah, give it to Mr. Gibbs.
I've been the vice chair for over 20 years, so.
Yeah.
You didn't shut off the light yet.
No other new business or anything, Jim? Okay. We're going to adjourn the meeting at 9:48 PM.